Scene one, Apple, take one.
Hi, everyone. This is Shane Borza. I'm here with another episode of Film Notes, the show where I talk to people in the industry about the industry. I'm really excited to have a new person here that I just got connected to, who is part of the Dos Almas Films company, which is in Los Angeles. And her name is Paola Baldion, and she is both an actor and what I call a triple threat because she's a writer, director, producer, and she makes all of her own stuff. And I'm excited to hear a little bit more about both sides of those things and where they maybe combined, which I know her new film she acts in as well as made it, but where also that might separate and be kind of two separate things. So welcome to the show. I'm really glad that you're here today.
Thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here.
Now, I just introduced you as both an actor who, you know, I break this down as like in front of camera roles and behind camera roles, and the writer, director, producer roles are all behind camera. So talk to me a little bit about how you got started with those. Did you start acting and doing things in front of camera and then move behind, or did you start like making things behind camera and then decide you wanted to get in front of it? Like, how did that all come to be?
Well, my acting starts around 3-4 years old. I was living in Italy with my parents, and they created a marionette theater. And so we were street performers. We used to perform on the streets of Italy, and my dad used to, you know, put a hat on me or put like strings, and I would play Pinocchio, or put be like a little rabbit that comes out of as a magic trick. So I was always performing on the streets. Like that's how my dad still makes his living. He basks in the streets of Italy. So that was my first years of performance, was mainly theater, street theater. And then I moved to Colombia around 10, 11 years old. And when I was in school, in high school, I started to take theater classes. And then when I was about 16, 15, I started to take acting classes. And I really loved it. I thought it was so fun. It was kind of like a continuation of what I have learned on the streets. And then at 17, I got my first audition for a TV series in Colombia, and I did my first audition and I nailed it, and I got casted for 2 years in a TV show called Amor a Mil. And that's what I learned, all the technicality of being on set. So I learned how, you know, you have to stand, light, sound, all the technicality that I didn't know because I came from theater. I learned in those 2 years. And after that, I graduated from high school, the TV show finished, and I was very curious about acting. I wanted to learn more. And I heard about this method acting in the States. I was like, this sounds so interesting, because in Colombia at that time, there was nothing like that. So I moved to New York because I wanted to study method acting, and I studied at HB Studios and with Stella Adler. And after I finished with those studies, I was like, I want to learn more about film and theater. So I moved to Canada, and I studied theater and film at Concordia University. After that, I came back to New York, and I was like, okay, I love this. Let's put into skills everything I learned. So I started to make short films with a group of friends that I had. And it was just for fun. They were very experimental. I just wanted to know if I could tell stories, how I wanted to tell them. And after that, I ended up moving to Los Angeles. And years later, with my partner, you know, my partner is an artist, he's a sculptor, he's a painter. So we started to work together. He's also he's an activist as well. We're both immigrants. He's Australian, I'm from Colombia. So for us, telling immigrant stories is very important, and highlighting stories that perhaps it's hard for these people to tell their own stories. So that's why it became our focus as of now, to tell immigrant stories. And in 2017, we made a short film. It's a 1-minute video. I took a DNA test. I was very curious where I came from. I wanted to know my ethnicities. And at that time, there was a political change, and in the news and socially, they were dehumanizing immigrants. They were painting Latinos as criminals and all that. And that really upset me. You know, I was like, I am a Latina, I am an immigrant. I've been to Central America. I've been to Nicaragua, El Salvador. I work in those countries. I know the reason why these people decide to do what they do, decide to cross the border undocumented. It's not hard for them to get a visa. It's not hard to even ask for political asylum. So they do it out of necessity. And I thought it was very important to start telling those stories. So I questioned myself, well, where do I come from? Like, I've lived in all these places all my life, and I feel like I'm a little bit a gypsy, I said in that way, because, you know, I've traveled, I've moved. I felt like I was Italian when I lived in Italy. Then I moved to Colombia. I had to learn a new language. And then when I felt Colombian, I moved to the States. So I felt like my identity has always been changing and shifting. And so I was very curious. I took a DNA test and I realized that I come from 10 different parts of the world. And I saw, oh my God, I am 20% Italian. So I am Italian. I didn't think at that time. And I said, wow, this is very powerful. So if I'm so mixed, I'm sure many other people, you know, are going to discover other things. So I made a video embracing my ethnicities. I did a study for months of each place I came from, what outfit would they wear, how would they do their hair, their makeup. And because I wanted to be very precise, I always say there's a very fine line between appreciation and appreciation. So I wanted to appreciate and not appropriate. I didn't want to cross that appropriate line. So I did a lot of work. And once we got it, we shot it in a day. We put it up on Facebook. And on the first week, we got 70 million views. So it went viral. And I have a few DNA companies that saw the video. They said, we love what you did. If you have another project, can we sponsor you? Can we back you up? And so we chose a DNA company and they help us. They sponsor our first documentary. It's called I Am Migration, where my husband and I, we cross the United States from pretty much New York to Los Angeles in an RV for 2 months. And we delivered 400 DNA tests to all the people that we encountered to show them that they all come from migration. And at that time, with this documentary, it was like, okay, this is getting serious. So we created our LLC, our Dos Almas Films company. And since then, we've been producing things. In the pandemic, I got pregnant. And so there was not much for us to do. So we said, let's make a docu-series. Let's shoot ourselves being pregnant during the pandemic. Like, it's one of a lifetime this is going to happen. So we made a little time capsule for Alma, my first daughter, so she could see in the future and kind of see where she came from. And then a few years later, I got pregnant with my second son, Azul. And when I was pregnant, I said, I need to do something for him, because in a few years, when he's a grown-up, he's like, how come you did a whole docu-series for my sister and you did nothing for me? So I always say this, you know, the need to do Abrazo was born out of guilt a little bit. You know, I wanted to be fair with my kids, but also, again, socially, you know, I'm very involved in the cause of immigrants, and I was pregnant, and I just had one day this image of a pregnant woman crossing the US border. I just had it stuck in my head. I was like, okay, this is a story to tell. I'm pregnant. Let's do it. So in 3 months, we did pre-production. We wrote the script. We had to be fast because I had to do it before I gave birth. And then we actually shot the film when I was 8 months pregnant. We shot it in Yucca Valley with an amazing team of friends and family that helped us shoot it. And yeah, that's our latest project. We just released it on YouTube. It's available for everyone to watch. And that's it.
Well, great overview of everything. And that there's actually, I was going to ask you a lot about that. So you set me up really well by kind of threading that all together. And a lot of parallels I heard about, like you were saying, you know, moving around in your life and finding different places like to learn or to like do your career or like make your projects, but also having that like learning about the fact that you're made up of people from all over the place. And I think that's a through line for a lot of people that don't necessarily notice. And that's why I think it's so important for people to like watch films like yours, because they can, you know, especially the new short, there's two really polarizing characters in there.
Mm-hmm.
Coming in. And even though it's so short, it's so full. Like, it has such a complete story, and the arcs are so vast in the change. And I think a lot of people can learn a lot by watching those types of stories and those types of characters. And then, like you said, it's shining a light on people who may think of issues or themselves in a certain way. Like you mentioned, like, oh, I'm from 10 different places or 20 different places I didn't know. Now you can't help but see the world in a different place. Like, oh, my lineage or my people or my ancestors are from all these places. It's now a tie to me. Mm-hmm. Whereas before it was something far away or not connected. So there's so many layers there. I was amazed to hear you say you were shooting while you're pregnant, because that was one of the things I was going to ask. Like, did you actually make that? But before we get into that, a couple parallels here, which are kind of funny too. So I actually went to film school in Australia and lived in Australia for 3 years. So when I was looking you up and seeing your website and everything, I was like, oh, there's another parallel. The only in front of camera stuff I've ever done. So I went to stunt academy and did like stunt work, but I've never done any acting. I usually do all this behind the camera stuff. So you started off talking about like being that show, and especially you being young. And it wasn't until later that, especially now that you have the production company. So talk to me a little bit about the combination of those two things. Like when you went from that show, it sounded like you were in high school and pretty young.
Yes, I was 17, correct.
Okay. So then you went to New York, you went to Canada. So that was all in the pursuit of acting. Were you planning on or thinking of like, I'm just going to act? Or were you already thinking of, I want to have my own company, I want to do my own productions, I want to make my own things? Like when and how did those two things come
No,
together?
at that moment, I mean, I've always loved film, but at that moment, I'm still very passionate about acting, but I really loved it. I just love, being different characters. And again, because I come from different backgrounds, it's kind of easy for me to kind of, morph into a different person. Because every time you speak a language, you're kind of like a different person. I'm not the same person when I speak Spanish or Italian. So it came very natural, and I was always very passionate. I never thought I would have a film production company. I never thought that all those tools of being on set would have come in handy years later. For me, it was like, oh, this is what actors do. This is where I have to stand. So even when I went to film school, I didn't study actually film, but I studied film history, because I kind of knew that I had all the technicality already, because I had learned from acting. So I just wanted to know about history now. And so, yeah, it wasn't really in my plans to become, a production owner or a director. It was just acting my main focus. And then I realized that I'm a storyteller. I love to tell stories. And so whatever that is performing or directing or writing or whatever it is I think that has become my main passion. And sometimes when people tell me like, what do you like most, directing or acting? I used to say acting, because it was easier, because as an actor, you just kind of have to do what you're being told. And as a director, you have a bigger responsibility, you have to manage a big set. So I used to say that, but then after directing Abrazo and other short films, I've noticed I actually really like it. It's not as hard as I thought. So now I kind of like them all. I like all the roles.
When I said at the beginning, the writer, director, producer is like a triple threat, because it really is such a tiered or like multi-layered skill set to have, to be able to, I mean, it's one thing to be like the writer director, and like I wrote the script, like I know it, I can see it, now I just have to translate it so like other people understand, both in front of and behind the camera, like what the image is, so what we're trying to do. But it's a whole other thing to like produce, and like how do we make all this happen and source all the stuff and like find the people and find the locations and find all the logistics. And that is very different than acting. So how was that? Because especially the new project, you were both having to be in character while pregnant and doing all the stuff. So how did you wrangle all of that? Because that's a huge undertaking.
Yes. So for that project, I had worked in LA in other films as an actress. So, for example, Vicky Xiao, she's an amazing producer. I met her working in a film, and I really liked her. I really bonded with her. And then I also, on another film, I met this amazing makeup artist, which she was fantastic. It was like, wow, you're so talented. So I also had a connection with her. And when it was time to do Abrazo, I was like, oh, I know all these people that I work with them in like, feature films. So like, I'm just going to give them a call and see if they want to be part of this team, because they know what to do. And at first I was very nervous, because this is an independent film. It was a small production, and they work in major film studios. So I didn't want to ask them to do it. So I was asked, do you know someone? Do you have like an assistant or someone that doesn't have much experience that would love to work in an indie short? And they all told me, send me the script and see what I can do. And the moment I sent them the script, it was like, I'm on board. I'll do it. It was like, I love the story. I'll do it. So I gathered a good team of people. I also had a really good friend, Will Walsh, who he's a Steadicam operator. I had Danielo, and also a good friend of mine who does sound. So, living in LA, a lot of people work in film. Right. So a lot of my friends, they all work in film. So I was like, okay, who can I choose that I like to work? Because that's another thing. When I do a project, I really love the process. And I think this comes from being an actress for so many years, for me, the result is not as important. Of course it is, but it's not my main goal. And for some people, the result is where they have to go. I just love the process of doing it and creating. So I wanted to surround myself by a good group of people that I know, they're down to earth and they can do whatever I tell them to do. I just want to have fun. And we did. And it was so lovely because all these people, some of them were friends of mine. Erica Glasser is my best friend. Then we have Juan Pablo Raba, who is a Hollywood actor in Colombia, who, again, he loved the script. He wanted to help. So it was just a big collaboration. And I feel like I felt so secure that I had such a good team that will back me up, that when I had to act and direct, it came so easy. Like, I had moments I even forgot that I was pregnant, because I was so in the moment. And another thing that I learned is, as a method actress, I like to prepare a lot for a role. And in this time, I didn't have the time to really full prepare. I mean, I knew who I was, I knew where I came from, but, I like to do preparation, wake up 2 hours early, do the whole method training. I didn't have time to any of this. But I wasn't nervous because I was more focused on the directing. And again, when I casted Kathleen, who she's an amazing actress, the reason that I chose her was, one, because she's a fantastic human being. She has such good spirits when she came to do the casting. And two, she was so easy that when I told her a note, she did it right away. I was like, oh, she's great, because that means I don't have to direct her that much. She already knows what to do. So I don't have to worry about her that much. And when we were on set, when we're shooting, it was very easy to be like, okay, let's do it. Let's direct. Let's do this. Let's direct. And because I wasn't thinking so much about my acting, I think that's why it came so natural, because I wasn't overthinking it. I was really in the moment. I didn't have a chance not to be in the moment. So yeah, everything came along. And I think it's, as I always say, filmmaking is a big collaboration. It's not about a director. There is so many people involved. And I think, like, once you have a good team, you're good to go.
Well, if you don't mind a compliment, because you're coming in cold to me, I just had, so for background people watching the show, so this is the 4th season, and I started off in the pandemic kind of like, well, I want to do something, so I was like, I'll just interview all of my film friends and have them talk about like what they do and how they got into it and whatever. And so anyway, we're in the 4th year now, and so now I'm starting to have people be like, hey, you don't know me, but I wanted to pitch someone for your show. And it's been great to connect and meet new people, but it enables me to come in cold to like, oh, here's the new project that so-and-so made. I'm like, oh, okay, let me check this out. And I'm watching and thinking like, wow, like she's like the lead in this film. She's like killing it. And then when the credits roll, I was like, oh, wow, she directed it too. Oh, wow. And she wrote like, oh, and she wrote it. Like, so the layers of like respect and admiration just kept coming in like as the credits were rolling, because I didn't go in knowing like, oh, this is a project that she did everything. Like I kind of went in like, oh, she's the actor in this. Great. Let's see how she does, So I'm always amazed, like I mentioned, because I've never done any acting stuff. Like stunt work, you have to learn the choreography and you like practice and practice, but it's physical. Like there's no story or character really, I mean, you're usually just like, there's a bunch of people like in a bar or whatever. And you're just like literally on set, like, I'm in the middle of a joke and they're like, we're ready to go. Like, I'll finish the punchline later. And then you do scene, you're like, so anyway, the guy said, because there's no like 2 hours of prep or anything. The 2 hours of prep for us is like, all right, let's go over the choreography again. And I'm amazed by that skill set of people being able to like put on the director producer hat and be behind camera and looking at it and saying, I know what to do. And then taking that hat off. And then they have to put their character on and immediately go into that. So when you were just talking about doing all that, I just want to let you know, like, I think a lot of people are mystified by that process, because usually people are known as, I mean, now a lot of people are hyphenates, but still it's like you're either filmmaker or like you're an actor or whatever. And so to walk between worlds a little bit, I think it's just very impressive. What's coming up for you now that you've had some of these projects? Like you talked about doing the documentary kind of across the country, and you had this short. I mean, you had the viral video. So now that you have the company, now that you've done some of these things and these are out, are you thinking of like the acting track and the filmmaking track as separate things? Are you trying to just make stuff for yourself to be in? Like, where do you see the future?
I'll tell you. So with Abrazo, I wasn't thinking of making a feature film. When Abrazo went to film festivals, people really liked it. And the one note that I had, it was like, what happens next? everybody asked me, what happens to Luz? What happens to Norma? What happens to the baby? Everybody wanted to know. I was like, I don't know. And they said, well, why don't you do a continuation? Why don't you do a feature film? Why don't you just continue from when you left off and you just keep adding? And I was like, oh, that's kind of like a cool idea. But then I thought, I will kind of have to reshoot everything because, timing and everything. And I was like, I don't like to do something that I already did. So I thought, like, what would happen to Luz 5 years later? When she already has the baby, when she's already in the US, what's her life? So I came with a story that I already have it all in my mind. I just need the time to write in it. But yes, in this story, I can tell you a little bit. It's a little bit like Babel and Amores Perros, and I'm a fan of Iñárritu. And I love when different stories intersect. And so that's my idea, is what happens to Luz, but at the same time we'll have a couple more characters that intersect into her life. So that's a feature film that I'm working on, that I'm writing. And then I will be performing, of course. So as I say, it's like a triptych. So we have three main characters, and Luz, it will be myself. So yes, that will be I will be directing and performing. And again, as I was writing it, I was thinking in the beginning it was the story of her and her child. And as I started developing and writing more, I was like, it will be more interesting if I see more people, but also as a director, if I don't put so much weight on myself, and maybe I have like a 30%, where I can really put all my work as an actress, and then for the rest of the time, I can kind of pull back and direct the other people. So that's how I came the idea of this. And then the second one is a TV show that I'm writing with my best friend, Erica Glasser. She's an actress from Colombia. She's also a producer. And it's based on her real life, on her dating life. She always used to come, and chat me into like, oh my God, I had this crazy guy who is looking for a third wife. I didn't know he was Muslim and he's looking for another wife. And blah, blah, blah. I was like, wow, these stories are so incredible. I was like, we need to do something about this. So we're writing a show based on her life experiences. Again, I will be a supporting role. Like I will be like in real life, the married friend with kids that she comes and tells the story. So I get to live my single life through her, but she's the lead. And that we're in the process of writing a pilot to get it up there. So these are my main project. And then we have others on the side. We were able to pitch an idea for a feature film to a major TV show. So that's on the works. But yeah, this is pretty much it for now.
You mentioned that Abrazo's in, or perhaps maybe it's already finished, the festival run. So how did you go from, because the first film, the 1 minute long one, you mentioned just being on Facebook and it kind of blew up, and that helped you get the immigration one going, and then now you have this one that went through a festival run. So what was that like? Did you like tour around and go to different festivals, or did you just like submit to a bunch of stuff on Film Freeway? Did you have like word of mouth advertising? Like how did all of that run go for the film? But also thinking about just like the larger arc of like having the viral video and then getting the sponsorship to like go cross country, like were you able to like plan out or like stair step your stuff? Or did all of it happen organically? Like, how did some of that like reach and things go? Because, sometimes people make a film and they're kind of like, well, now what? What do we do with it? And other people, they have a very specific plan before they even start shooting. They're like, here's where we're going to put it. Here's what we're going to do. So did all of that happen kind of organically at project to project? Or did you have like plans in place, or like festivals that you knew you wanted to put it to? Like, and I know you said it's out on YouTube, but is it even still in festivals? Like, where are all these projects at?
See, they all live on YouTube. I Am Migration, we were able to sell it to some TV channels, mainly in South America and Central America. They really like it, but they all live in YouTube. And the reason for that is like all of our projects are very social, very educational. So we always say we make them for the people, because our goal is to, I don't want to the word educate, but like highlight issues that maybe they're not really talked. And I know immigration is such a sensitive topic, so I just want to kind of highlight that and start a conversation, like, and it's so polarizing. And it's like, okay, let's be real. Why? Why is this division? Where does it come from? So that my husband and I, that this is our activist kind of way of being like, okay, this is for the people. So we put them all there. And with I Am Migration, we didn't submit it to many festivals because we just wanted to get it out there very quickly because of the political climate and everything that was happening at that moment. And then with Abrazo, I wanted to submit it to festivals because I thought, like, it's kind of like a film festival film, in the way that it was made. So I just submitted to Film Freeway. And it happened organically. Like, I submitted to a bunch of them, and the ones that say yes, I was able to attend. I submitted to a lot of them that I knew I was going to be in those cities or those countries at that time. So for example, I submitted to Indie Film Fest because they were all in LA, and then to Italy because I knew I was going to be in Italy for the summer. So I was like, oh, maybe, and it happened. We got 2 film festivals in Italy. So yeah, it happened very organically.
I asked too, because I've worked in festivals for a long time, and I wanted to actually connect you with 2 of them in particular. And one of them, so I'm here in Vegas, and it's the Nevada Women's Film Festival. So it's a women-centric creative festival. And so as long as someone above the line, so it doesn't have to be directed by a woman, it either has to be produced by or written by or directed by, and or have it be like female leads in the story. But they have both features and shorts. So this is our second year being part of that festival, like volunteering. And then the other is Boulder City, which is where the Hoover Dam is just south of Las Vegas. And they have the Dam Short Film Festival. And it's one of the 100 highest rated film festivals in the world on Film Freeway for like 20 years. It's very highly regarded, but it's only for short films. Nice. And I'm one of the content reviewers for that.
Lovely. We'll be happy to submit it.
So I'm happy to connect you with those, but
just
to also let people know, because those are both, because a lot of people think of hubs as, like, LA or New York or, South by or something. And most major cities now have a film festival. So I'm always encouraging people, like you mentioned, if you're traveling or you're going to be there, or you want an excuse to go somewhere.
Exactly.
Those film festivals. And the festival experience is so wonderful because, as I'm sure you experienced, you meet people and you get to see films and creators that you never would meet if you're just, home. So if there is a local film festival, great, like volunteer, show up, go, patron the things, applaud the films. And I mean, I've had people say before, like, I've gone to festivals and movies are terrible. I was like, great, get inspired, make something better, and
yes.
Either way, it can be really helpful. So what was your experience going around, and especially internationally, to some of those? Like, did you make connections? Were you inspired? Like, how was that? Because I think that the festival experience can be very hit or miss for people. Some people it's expensive, it's difficult, they can't get in or what have you. And other people, they seem to like jump on the roller coaster and have the time of their lives.
Yeah, I'll tell you. The first interesting reaction I had, I went to Chandler Film Festival in Arizona. And I loved it because I was in competition with a bunch of other short films, and when they had our section, all the films that were in competition were played in like a few hours because they were all short films. And at the end of it, when they asked all of the directors to go on stage, most of them, they were women, but most of them, they were women that had directed, produced, or acted in it. So I was like, wow, it was so, I just got goosebumps just thinking about it. I was like, it was so inspiring. I was like, I'm not the only one, I'm not the only actress who is moved into director and producer. And I met an amazing group of women. And I remember this woman, Renee Garcia is her name. After she saw my film, she came to me and she said, I loved your film. It was my favorite film. How can I help you? And I was like, what? She's like, how can I help you? She was like, I'm a director myself. I'm also a producer. I'm also a casting director. How can I help you continue what you're doing? Because I think you're very talented. I was like, wow, Renee, thank you. Like no one else in the same category has ever approached me with that. And she was like, yeah, so like, I really believe in helping each other. And even though we are in competition, I don't feel like we should be in competition. So for me, that was like an eye opener. It was like, wow, the industry, it is a very competitive world, but there is people that they're not competitive and they're right for the right reason. So that was very lovely to meet her. And since then, we became super good friends and we try to support each other every time we can. And then when we went to Italy, what I loved was the reaction of the people, because we have never shown to a foreign audience. And they were blown away. And they were blown away by the topic, because, you know, in Italy also there is an immigration problem, but like they didn't really know the depth that it was happening in the US. And so they were like, wow, I didn't know that's how it is in the US. So we didn't, so they were very curious. Like I had a lot of questions for the Italiano, very curious. And they loved it as well. So it was very interesting to see it, you know, in another country where people don't speak the language, but they have to watch it with subtitles and see what they get from the film.
Sorry to stop the show, but we've got some bills to pay around here, and to do that, I wanted to point out a couple things I've got on offer at shaneborza.com. As both a master level mental health coach and an award-winning filmmaker, I have the experience and expertise to help you go further faster, regardless of whether that is in your production or life. I am psyched to announce all my courses and books have been updated and expanded and are available on both Apple Books and at my shop. Especially wanted to point out my film notes book and workbook, where you can learn everything you need to make your film and get it out to the world. If you need help with either your life or film, please reach out. And now, back to the show. And it really is a universal language like art. You know, I've lived overseas in a couple of places, and I've had people say like, oh, I learned English by listening to American music. But they start off, it's just like the language is just a sound because they don't understand what it means. And eventually, or even now, it's very easy. I mean, Netflix has international shows on, and it's very easy to like watch them, you know, I mean, you could listen to the dub or the subtitles, but I've had people say, like, I have some people locally that are friends that are like learning languages, and they're like, oh, I just watch shows in that language so I can get used to hearing that language all the time. It's a very easy way to get immersive. And then they fall in love with those shows, you know. So it really is a way to try kind of transcend. And on one hand, like you mentioned, we're showing stories that other people may not necessarily know about, but it also gives people a chance to like parallel those things and go, oh, that's the version over there. Mm-hmm. Or, oh, we have a version of that, even though the might be different. And really, like you mentioned at the beginning, to go back to that first project, like we're all so interwoven because these migrations and everything have been going on for all of human history. And I just wanted to go back to that because you talked a little bit about how you shot that in a whole day, but you did a lot of research. And that was something that really impressed me, because that was the first one that I saw, was that short of like, oh, wow, she did such a good job, because it did feel very genuine. Mm-hmm. And it was very interesting because I watched it. Well, the first time I watched it, I was just like watching it to see it. And then I watched it 2 more times with these different lenses. And the one was like really looking at like the difference each time and like how much the change was in very simple ways of like changing the hair and the makeup and the wardrobe. And then the third time I watched it, I was trying to see like the same person all the time, regardless of how different they looked.
I love that.
So it's a very interesting exercise for me. But wanted to ask you a little bit about, so a couple of things here. You mentioned you and your husband, I believe you're like co-creators of the production company, yes, but he's an artist. So how do you work together? And then if you work together in that project, like what were the roles? Because I'm sure there was a lot there to get the looks.
Yes. So the first time we worked together, I work in one of his projects. It's called Virtual Borders Arizona, where he went to the Arizona border, and he, in the middle of the desert, he dumped 3 big sculptures, kind of highlighting the immigration problem. So one of them was a massive bear trap. Another one was a melting world. And another one was a fried egg, an egg frying under the sun. And he put it in the middle of the desert, and then he recorded it in virtual reality so that people later could access this sculpture in virtual reality. And that was the first project we did together. And I remember when we worked, you know, he was very stressed, and we're very different because he really likes the outcome. Like he's a person, like he doesn't enjoy the process. So we bumped heads in the first project, and we are like, remember having like, I'm never going to work with you again. I was like, same. And then after I was like, oh, but we're both creative and we love each other. Okay, let's give it a try. So then our second project was the viral video, and that was easy. That was at home. And then the other one was the trip, the immigration trip. And that's what we really learned. Okay, how can we work together? What can I bring? What can you bring? And so we realized that, he's an amazing artist. He has this amazing eye. So he's really good with composition. So in most of the projects that we do at home, like he sets up the cameras, he sets up the shot. And for I Am Migration, he learned how to work with a drone. So all the drone shots, he made them. And so we learned, and when it came to directing, well, I was directing because I have these skills from directing, and he was more the producer in that show. And so so he's been by trial and error and see how can we work together, and how can we make it fun? How can we make it, that we like it at the end? And now we like it. Now we love working together.
Well, let me ask you a little about that too, because so my wife and she's my producing partner, and she's predominantly a voice actor. So she has her own recording studio in the house, and that's usually what she does is, she's done audiobooks before, which she hates actually, because it's a lot of work. So she's usually doing different character voices for things or what have you. And she has done some kind of on-camera work before, but she's really good with organization. And so she's been like a line producer and unit production manager and things like that. So whenever I have like a script, for instance, like I'll write it and then Cole just be like, hey, I wrote something. Can you read it and give me notes? Or like, hey, I did the call sheets and I did the schedule and I did the shot list and I did all the things. Can you check them and, fix them or whatever? So she's really good at like checking my work and like looking at things, especially details. I'm big picture type things.
Same
and
here.
She's like, this is the wrong font. You don't want this, or whatever. And I'm like, fine, whatever. So we have learned project to project to project, like, these are the things that she should do. These are the things that I could do. These are where we can work together. These are where we're going to butt heads, like you mentioned. But that was like an organic process. And just like any other collaboration, whether you work with the same people or not, you kind of learn that shorthand. So how has that evolved? Like, as you mentioned, you have some other like newer, bigger projects, because part of this is about like each of you learning what you're good and bad at, and then how to have that partnership work together. But the other part is like that vision of the company and like growing it and where you want it to go. And usually people are going from smaller projects to bigger projects over time. So both on that personal side, but also the company side, like where do you see that evolution and how has it maybe changed even just over these first couple projects?
Yeah, we have a very similar relationship. I usually, when it comes, because we do different projects together, but when it's a project that I have more to do with cinema or film, I come with the idea and I tell him, hey, I have this idea. And he tells me like, that's not so cool. Yeah, that's good. He's very critical. He has a really good eye. He's very picky. So sometimes he can be very brutally honest, but it helps because I'm like, oh, he's right. This is not the direction I should be going. I should be going this direction. And so it's very similar, as you said, to you and your wife. Like that's our MO. And yes, it became organic. It's by trial and error. And then, we realized even when I'm writing scripts, I will write a script with my friends. I have my writing partner, Rai Figueroa, who helped me write Abrazo. And then now with Erica, it's her and I writing. And every time I finish something, we give it to him. We read it to him. And he'll be like, okay, yes, no. So yes, we found that dynamic works really well for us too.
Well, I want to shift a little bit because, as I mentioned at the beginning, we were talking before we started rolling. So this show is called Film Notes, and the whole concept is like, I want to get these notes from people so people can learn from the wisdom and experience that people have accrued, especially in different roles. I've had editors on and color correctors and actors and all kinds of things. So what might be some top notes, things either you wished you'd known or things that really stand out that you might want to pass on in any of the roles that you've done, whether it's actor, writer, director, producer? What comes to mind that really stands out that might be helpful for other people to know?
The first thing I always say, it's like, don't feel too overwhelmed that you gotta find a camera, sound, and everything. Like right now we have literally iPhone in our pockets or a phone, and you can shoot something with that. So that's the first thing I always say. Just start doing stuff, with yourself. Like again, the viral video, we shot it with my iPhone. So that's my first note. Like start doing it with the tools that you have. Like don't think like, oh, I don't have the budget to get this. Like no, start to work with your friends. You have a friend who's an actor, a friend, like gather the people that you know and start making projects. And then see as trial and error, as I said before, see what works and what doesn't work. Because that's the only way you're going to learn. It was like, okay, maybe, the same thing like with Abrazo now, looking back, I'm very detailed. And I was like, oh, I would have done this differently. I would have done that different. And what I learned for Abrazo, I needed more time. We shot it in 3 days because of budget and because the location, it was Yucca Valley. It's very hot, very cold. Also, I was pregnant. So it was very fast. And now looking back, I'm like, okay, what I learned that I need more time. So I can really get those details that I wanted to portray in camera. So that's my personal one is take my time, don't rush everything. Because again, it's part of my personality too. When I get really excited, I want to do things right away. I'm like that. So now I've learned like, okay, let's be a little bit more grounded. Let's be more organized. Pace ourselves. So that's in terms of that. And then in terms of acting, I used to say, I think training is very important, just to at least know basic skills, but also you got to live a life. And that advice, I got it from a couple of managers, where I was like, I'm sorry, I'm busy, I'm good, I have to go to Italy to visit my parents. I'm so sorry if I cannot do auditions. And they told me like, you have to live a life, because acting is by taking from your life experiences and then putting them on the screen. So like, go for it, like live a life. So that's my other advice. Like, don't think like maybe you don't have the time to act or to this, like every day, like look at people. Like I get the most by just looking at people, just sitting on a bench and looking what people do, their mannerism, how they work, being an actor it's a human study. So just by living, you just doing it. So that's my 2 little film notes for now.
Now, to flip that or do like a part 2, what might be some notes for people that like if they want to hire an actor or a writer, director, producer, somebody, because you do a lot of different roles. So sometimes people are, especially when they're starting off, they're doing their own projects and they are wearing a lot of hats. But as they build, then it starts to become like, oh, I don't have to do everything. I could hire people to do that.
Yes.
And sometimes they've never done that before, so they don't know how to go through casting and find the right actor. They don't know like who would be a good director. How do I find a good director? What's a good director mean? So you could speak on any of those as well. But what might be some notes for you, either the process you've gone through to maybe get cast that might be some good things, or as the director for your project, like you hired actors, like what are some things that might help people to hire or work with people like that maybe they haven't done before that might be helpful?
Yeah, when we did the audition for Abrazo, we used casting networks, for which I've never used before. And I think we auditioned about 10 different women. And what we learned with that process, because it was me and my best friend Erica, who she's also an actress. So it was the first time us auditioning other people and being, in the casting director chair. And it was very interesting because we learned a few things. One, that the more you are yourself, the more open, the more it was attractive to us. We had, for example, one woman who came and she was telling me what to do. And she was, originally I don't know why, but I envisioned Norma to be in her 70s, late 60s, 70s, like kind of like a grandmother. So we auditioned a lot of women at in that age range. So some of them, they were very, old actresses do have work maybe for many years in TV series for 20 years, and then they stop working and they're working for like independent films and that. So some of them, they came with that, with that attitude, like, I know better, kind of, she was telling me what to do. Why was I doing it? What, very confrontational. And the moment she left the room, I was like, oh yeah, she's not going to be it. Like, she's not the one. And again, when Caitlin showed up, she was much younger than what I had envisioned. So my first red flag, I was like, oh, she doesn't fit the criteria of the character that I have in my mind. But the moment she started throwing their lines and being herself, like, she was so in character, she was so honest. I barely had to direct it. She already knew where she was going. And even from the beginning, when she was starting asking about the project questions, like, they were real questions, and she was so excited. She was like, I love this. What a great idea. Like, her excitement. She was very humble too, and and just the work she did. Like the moment she walked out, I literally looked at Eric and I was like, we both nodded. I was like, this is the one. This is the one. And then we were like, oh, she's just a little bit younger than what we thought. And I was like, well, maybe what's wrong with that? Maybe the character can be younger, you know? And I'm glad she did, because then it developed this whole story that instead of being a grandmother, she's a mother. And so now we have this other dynamic, you know, a mother, and my character could be her daughter, you know, she's of that age that she could be her daughter. So that added another layer. So casting her, it was eye-opening for all of us, because it's like, oh, sometimes even when you think you know what you want, you also have to be open as a director and casting director to be like, okay, maybe she doesn't fit the profile I had in my mind, but what she's bringing to the table is so much more powerful. So yeah, that was lovely to see, and understanding that. And then I think we were like, oh, now we know what to do as actors. We don't have to be that nervous. We just gotta be ourselves, which is easier said than done, right? Because you're always very nervous getting to a casting director. But then, you know, like, you know, casting directors, they're not looking to put you down. We hope so, right? But they're just looking to find someone that they like.
So a lot of really good stuff there, and I'm glad you were able, because this is another thing that can be hard, is learning like when to bend and be flexible and when to be firm and say like, no, it has to be like this, because there's definitely a time and a place for both, where you have to go, ooh, this is a happy accident, like what a great surprise. And other times you have to stick to your guns and be like, no, I have a vision, it has to be this no matter what, like I don't care. And so that is a hard thing to know, but sometimes you just have to feel it. And being in the room with people, that's a great way to feel it. Because the other thing I like to remind people, you know, you're not just directing the action in front of a camera, you're also directing all of the crew and everything behind the camera, but you're also directing like the experience of like, okay, we have 5 days together. I need to direct this whole 5 days of all of us being together. And that's like you spoke of earlier, like the process. Like that's what you're directing, is like having people come away from this and going, I love her, I'll work with her on anything forever. Not like, well, that was terrible. You know? So I'm so glad to hear you're talking about a lot of those things, because they can be subtle. And a lot of people just get so locked in on, like you said before, the output. They can see like, we need to get these things so we can assemble them and have it be shown. But that's where you have people like, I mean, if you're talking about A-list people, quite often, Spike Lee's new movie's coming out. It's like the 5th collaboration he's done with Denzel Washington. Like, they obviously enjoy working together. They've been doing it since the 90s, you know? And that's what we want, is to build these teams and these relationships, because as we were kind of talking about earlier, like art is a relationship. It's a relationship with the collaborators, it's a relationship with the audience, it's inspiration, it's storytelling, it's all of these things of like weaving a lot of layers together. So I'm really happy to hear you talking about that experience and how that was not only in the room, but like on the set. Now, other hard pivot here, wanted to ask about where people can connect with you, see what you're doing, follow along, and especially see all your films. I know you mentioned YouTube a lot, but you know, let's kind of broadcast all the places where people can find you and all your things.
Yes, thank you. So on social media, Instagram, we have an account for myself. It's Paola Baldion. For our project is Dos Almas Films. We also have a website, dosalmasfilms.com. And our YouTube channels is also called Dos Almas Films. What else? What else can you guys find me? I think that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Well, let me ask, because you mentioned earlier you had premiered that viral video on Facebook. So do you have a Facebook page for that, or for yourself?
We do. So it's funny how it happened. I wasn't, because we never thought of the video going viral. That wasn't our, you know, our goal. We just wanted to put it out there and see what people thought. So I put that video on my private page. I made the mistake of putting it on my private page. And it was a private video because my page is private. And then it became viral within my friends. And then once I realized that just within my community was going viral, I was like, okay, so I'm going to make it public. And that is when it went viral. And then I was like, okay, I should have done it from my professional page, but that's okay. So yeah, on Facebook, you can I have a professional page, which is Paola Baldion, and you can find me there too.
So I'll just jump in and use this as a note, because things like this are great lessons to learn. and that's where wisdom experience comes in. We do things wrong, we learn how to do them right.
Yes.
So it's a great note sometimes to think about. We all hope that the song we put out goes huge, or the video we goes out goes huge. So it's helpful to think ahead of time and go, okay, just in case, like, where am I going to want this stuff to be? Because
Yes.
it's very hard later to like move it or whatever. So I'm glad you had the success. I'm sorry to hear that you had to learn that lesson though.
Yes.
So glad to have met you today. I was such a fan of your work, so I'm really glad we connected. Is there anything else that you wanted to spotlight, or that you have things that you want people to see or promote?
I mean, I think right now my main goal is, we live in times when we're very divided. And we forget that the problem is not us, but it's the people that are in charge, and that's how they get us, by dividing us. And I think it's like with the projects that I do, even if I talk about challenging topics like racism and immigration and all those, I always try to shine a little bit light at the end and hope. I am a very positive person, and I do believe, that you can manifest positive things if you really put your mindset into it. So I think it's more of an invitation of, sometimes, it's very easy for us to judge someone by their appearance, by the way they look, or by the way they speak, because they have an accent or not. So I think nowadays it's very important to have empathy for each other, and a little bit more patience, and to try to have different perspectives, because I think that's where we fail. I think there is a lack of perspective. We live in such a capitalistic world that it's all about me, putting myself first. And sometimes by doing that, we lose touch with humanity. So it's more like an invitation of, be kind, to stay open and be kind, because you never know another person, what's the struggles they're going through, and don't take it for granted.
Really good thoughts there. Really glad that, again, you were on the show. We're able to talk a lot about the experience, and again, the threads or the parallels between like yourself growing up and moving all over the world, and then finding like you were from people from all over the world, and then showcasing these projects which have now gone all over the world. So it's so great to hear the different levels and layers of like these international things going on. So really encourage people to watch all the shows, especially because they're available to see like on YouTube. It's very easy. It's hard sometimes. I don't know if you listen to any podcasts, but Mark Maron has he's a comedian, and he has this big podcast called WTF. And one of his jokes is, not only have I not heard of that show, but I haven't even heard of the platform that it's on, because there's so many, it's hard to find things. But I'll definitely have all the links on screen. And just as an aside, I mentioned in the beginning that this is fourth season of the show. So this is a YouTube show. So I always encourage people, speaking of YouTube, go to my channel and watch the show. So you get to see the person speaking. You get to see, like, I put posters up and I put the, screen grabs of all the things. So it's very helpful and easy for people to see the projects and get the links. It's also an audio show, so sometimes people are just listening to it, but I always encourage people to go watch the show. We're talking about film. Film is a medium that's visual, that you watch. Podcasts are easy to listen to, but I always encourage people to see their face, like see their work. Go to YouTube and watch the show. But I just want to thank you again so much for being here, and I'll look forward to everyone joining us on the next episode.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure talking to you, and really thank you for having me on your show.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to support the show, please click on the link below. You can also contact me at my website if you have any questions about filmmaking or anything else. Off to the side, you'll see a couple of my books, Film Notes and the Film Notes Workbook. I encourage you to check those out if you'd like to learn more about filmmaking. See you in the next episode. Scene 1, Apple, take 1.